This week we are lucky enough to be joined by a living legend of the sports and broadcasting industry, an Order of Australian medalist and walking advertisement for all that is good of the Central West region of New South Wales. This week we give to you Mr. KenSutcliffe.
Thank you so much for being a guest on Radio GPS. We appreciate you giving us your time today. My name is Henley and I'm joined today by Jake and Charlotte.
Well, it's nice to be here. Hello, how are you?
Good.
It's nice to be back at school again. It's been a long time for me. I'll bet.
You have been to numerous countries and events around the world, including the Summer Olympics and the Winter Olympics. Did you prefer covering one more than the other?
No, they were both very, very special. The strangest one for me, the one that I wasn't the most familiar with, obviously, was the Winter Olympics because, well, being raised in Mudgee, and as you know in Golgong, there's not a lot of snow around here, is there?
No.
So I had to do a lot of homework, find out who was who, not just Australians that are taking part, but also the other countries. But I found it tremendously exciting because there's a lot of speed, a lot of bravery, there's a lot of skill. And, I travelled, I think, did 4 Winter Olympics in all parts of the world. I also like the Summer Olympics because of all the things, the 100 metres and the swimming and the javelin and the marathon and all sorts of things. So they're both, I wouldn't say I prefer one over the other. They both have their magic. And for a boy who went to school in Mudgee Primary and then Mudgee High School, the idea that one day I would be able to travel the world and see these great sporting events, still I have to pinch myself that I actually did that.
Were there any sporting moments that stood out from these events?
No, not. They're all good, and you wouldn't want to put too many in front of the other one because they all have a special magic. I guess Tiger Woods winning the Masters for the first time, the golf in 1997 in Augusta was pretty special, but also covering state of origins, grand finals, Wimbledon. We had a tennis court in Mudgee beside our house near the railway track, which was owned by the railway. And I used to mark it, roll it and water it and play on it. And I used to pretend I was Ken Rosewall, who was one of our great tennis players. And I had a friend, he was blonde, so he had to be Lou Hode. So he was an Australian. And we used to play tennis pretty much every afternoon. And tennis was a pretty magical sport for me. So to go to Wimbledon many, many years later as a young man, it was extraordinary. And then I became very, very good friends with Ken Rosewall and a lot of other great tennis players, Leighton Hewitt, as you all know, and Patrick Rafter. There's just so many over the years, and Yvonne Goolagong. So I liked my tennis, but as you know, you're raised in the country. It's good to play sport. And sport is pretty important because it brings people together. It teaches you how to win, but more importantly, it teaches you how to lose. And then, if you've got enough character, you fight back and you use all that sporting knowledge you brought up and sort of say, okay, it might not be sport that I'm dealing with right now, but I've got to fight back. So that's what I loved about sport, about learning how to win and learning how to lose and admiring the great champions. Yeah.
We love our footy here at Golgong Public School, and you have hosted Rugby League Grand Finals and State of Origins. Firstly, New South Wales or Queensland? Me, Queensland.
Well, I have a daughter who was born in Queensland, so she's Queensland, obviously. Well, I was born in Oberon, it's in New South Wales, and then went to Werris Creek and then to Mudgee, so I've got to be a New South Welshman. But, I went out and watched the Golgong Terriers when they won their grand final, undefeated for the year, weren't they? I think that's the way it was.
Yeah. Yep.
Great grand final, one of the best ones I've seen for a long, long time. And there was a fullback, I don't know who he was. He's an Indigenous player. He's terrific, as good a football player I've seen in the bush for a long time. So that was pretty special. It was a fun afternoon. Took me back to my young days. A couple of thousand people out there really enjoying it, and they played well. They were terrific. So, yep, I've covered a lot of great sport, and the big events is what I like, the big World Cup soccer and all those sorts of things, even MotoGP and Formula One Grand Prix. So I've had a lot of variety. So not one over the other. As long as they're big and they're big sporting events, they're terrific, yeah. I'm not very good at horse racing. That's probably my weakest. I'm not very big at it. I like to go to socially, but I don't know.
like
I'm not a
watching
punter.
horse
Are you a
races.
punter? Do you punt? Good. Stay that way. Okay. You won't. You'll keep your money if you don't punt. Okay.
Do you have a favourite NRL team?
Not really. I was very fond of North Queensland Cowboys because I was helping when they first tried to come into the competition many years ago, and when I was working in North Queensland. But then when I came to Sydney, I lived in the Parramatta district, and I was probably my daughters and my son went to school in the Parramatta district. So Parramatta was probably my favourite team, and then after that would be Penrith. These days, I don't really have a favourite team. If it's a good football game, it's a good football game.
Do you have an all-time player?
Oh, there's a lot. Wally Lewis. I think Ivan Cleary's probably will be one of the great all-time players. There's just so many. Peter Sterling, and players long before you were even thought of or born. Great players in the past. I've got plenty of favourite players, but one thing I always liked about it is, I don't know whether any of you three, you hosts, are very good at sport, or you probably love your sport, but I was okay, but I wasn't great. But I played most sports, and not very well. Probably tennis and rugby league was about as good as it got. But I admired the people who could do things that I couldn't do. And that, you know the word elite? When you're elite, it means you're pretty special. Well, an elite athlete is somebody who can do things most people can't do. That's why I admire them. But I admire people at grassroots level too, who just enjoy sport.
Yeah.
In 1997, golfer Tiger Woods broke through to make a historic victory at the Masters. Why was this such an exciting event?
Well, because the way he won, he was a young man. I think he won it by 12 shots, it's going back 97, and a black American. And in those days and beforehand, the idea that could ever happen at Augusta, which is in the deep south of America, where they had the Civil War, the heart of the Civil War, which is about slavery and so forth, it took on extra significance because this young man, a great athlete, came along and just blew everybody off the park and went on to win 15 majors and is still playing, and he'd probably be a lot better player if he had had a terrible car crash several years ago. But that was historic because there was so much going for it, not just the way he won the tournament, that he was a black American and he broke down a lot of barriers and he brought a lot of people into the game, made them interested in the game that weren't interested before. So that made it very interesting.
In 2010, you hosted the FIFA World Cup in South Africa. What were the highlights from that amazing experience?
Well, I enjoyed South Africa, but I enjoyed Germany more in 2006. 2010 was the South African one. Germany was wonderful because it was Europe's the heart of soccer. It's where Europe and England. It was just huge because I was a man in my early 40s then, or a bit later than that. And you think you know everything, but you always learn something new. And now I found out why that game is the world game, why it is the most popular football in the world, soccer, or they call it football. And it was just the amount of people that were going to it, the great grounds, the atmosphere, the fact that Australia had so many great players then. Harry Kewell was playing, Mark Viduka was playing, Lucas Neal was playing. We had a lot of good players, and we should have probably got into the last, into the quarterfinals, but we had a bit of unlucky. We were unlucky against Italy, who went on to win the whole thing. So that was pretty special. Lots of Australians over there. The scenery, the history of all around Germany. And then South Africa was a little bit different again, not quite as enjoyable, but nevertheless different. And it was a privilege to be able to be there.
You were part of the Wide World Sports TV show for a long time and met lots of famous athletes and celebrities. Who has been one of your favourite famous people to interview?
Who's been my favourite people to interview?
Yeah.
Well, there's been a few. I've interviewed all the top tennis players, and sometimes it's somebody that you don't know is not real famous. Not real famous. It's easy to talk about the really famous people, and there's plenty of them. But I'll tell you one story that I think you might resonate with you, that you might think is pretty interesting. I went to the Commonwealth Games in Kuala Lumpur, and there was a young fellow there called Mehmet Yachi. He was a Turkish immigrant, lived in Australia, brought to Australia, raised in the streets around Redfern and so forth, with another fellow called Johnny Newen. They were great mates. They came from what they call the wrong side of the tracks. Wrong side of the tracks. Johnny Newen was the hot favourite to win a gold medal in the weightlifting. Now, Johnny Newen was Mehmet Yachi's best friend. And Mehmet wasn't going to go to the Commonwealth Games, but somebody pulled out, and luck as it was, he was able to be selected and went over, but with no real prospects of winning a medal, but just participating, which is good enough, isn't it, in many ways. Yeah. And they get over there, and Johnny Newen was the hot favourite to win the medal in this particular division, and it didn't happen for him. Sometimes, even when you're the favourite, on your day, it's not your day. And Mehmet Yachi, who nobody heard of, nobody gave a chance, nobody rated, comes out and lifts the most amazing weight for the first time and takes the gold medal. Now, he wasn't the favourite. His best mate was the favourite. And the first thing that Mehmet did, he went over and embraced his best friend and apologised because he was so surprised that he won. And I thought that was one of the best sporting moments I've ever seen. And then a little later on, Mehmet came to the studio where we had at Kuala Lumpur, and he was standing in the corner, and he was only a little man, in the lightweight division. And he's got his gold medal around his neck, and he's in his tracksuit. And in the commercial break, he came over and introduced himself. And I said, Mehmet, shook his hands. He said, "Oh, Mr. Sutcliffe, I'm so proud to be able to talk to you." And I said, "Mehmet, I'm prouder than that. You've won a gold medal. I've never won a gold medal. I wish I was you today." That was a pretty special moment. Yeah. And nobody's heard of Mehmet since, really. He just came back to Australia and got on with his life. But it was a fabulous sporting. He had his little moment in the sun. Pretty special. You must listen. Because I've seen people talking to somebody, interviewing someone, and they've said something totally and utterly interesting, fascinating. But the person who's doing the interview wasn't listening and just went on to the next question, and missed out on a fantastic story because they weren't listening. They were too preoccupied. I've got all my questions. I'm going to get all through these questions, and wasn't listening to what the person was saying. So listen, and then reply to something that it's not on the cue card, it's not on the agenda, it's not organised. Like I might say something here today that you haven't got the question organised for. Well, don't be afraid to go off script and sort of say, well, what about that? I never knew that. I mean, I did all my research, but I didn't realise you said that. Could we take that a little bit further? So listen. Good interviewers listen.
When conducting our research, we found that you have a couple of nicknames, the male model from Mudgee and the de facto mayor of Mudgee. Which name do you prefer?
Neither. But they're a bit of fun. You must learn to laugh at yourself. That's very interesting. People who can laugh at themselves, people who take themselves too seriously, they have a pretty troubled life mostly because they're not quite sure whether people are serious or otherwise. So just laugh at yourself. That was, you heard of the word alliteration, is where words rhyme with one another. Male model from Mudgee, that's alliteration, right? Yeah. So it was on a record by a fellow who was a comedian, and he sold lots and lots of records, and he did it around the cricket team and the cricket commentary team of Richie Benaud and all these people. And because I was on Wide World of Sports, he decided, well, we've got to give everyone else had a nickname, so he called me the male model from Mudgee. And wherever I've been in the world, and I've been to about 40 different countries, I suppose, covering sport and that sort of thing,
Wow.
there's always an Australian or somebody around who will yell out, "Hey, the male model from Mudgee." And they mean it in the nicest possible way. They're not being rude or otherwise. It's just, in the end, it's a form of endearment, of affection. But if you get too serious about it and say, "I don't like that," you shouldn't be calling me a male model. You're probably taking yourself a bit too seriously. I bet you've got nicknames, have you?
Yeah.
Do you like them?
Yeah, not
Sort
really.
of.
Well, if you don't really like them, don't tell anybody, because the more you tell them you don't like them, the more they're going to use it, okay?
Yeah.
That's another tip.
Out of all the sporting events you have hosted, including Commonwealth and Olympic Games, Soccer World Cups, Wimbledon, rugby leagues, racing and so on, is there one sporting moment that stands out from the rest?
There's no particular favourite, except at the time, it's a bit like most things. When you're at a big sporting event and something special happens, that's the favourite time of your life. Then what do you know? Next week you go somewhere else. Oh, here's another one. Oh, and then there's another one, And so I can't say that there's one particular favourite. The best thing I can say to you, I had the best job in the world. I went to school in Mudgee, finished 3 years high school. All I ever wanted to be was a radio announcer. I was smart enough to probably go on and do a little bit better study, but I was determined to get into the media. So what I'm trying to tell you is that when you know what you want to be and how you want to go about it, that's the best moment in your life, when you know what you want to do. Because then you go out, you don't worry about what the money is, you don't care. All you want is to do a job that you think is going to be pretty special for you, and work towards it, and and put up with the setbacks and put up with the things that go wrong, and just work at it and don't give up, and that's what I did. I just worked at it. You three here, you're a lot smarter at school than I was, I can tell you. I just know it. I couldn't do what you're doing at your age. There you go. I couldn't do it. I was too shy.
I'm a bit shy too. Don't worry.
Well, you're not as shy as I was. I was a mummy's boy.
In 2019, you received the Medal of Order of Australia for your services to broadcasting. That must have been a pretty special moment.
Well, you know what? It was, but you've got to keep it in perspective. There's a lot of people out there who do a lot of good things that nobody knows about because they don't have a profile. But they quietly go about, they don't seek recognition, and when they get it, sometimes they just don't want to know about it. So I keep it in perspective. It was proud for my family and da-da-da. But you know what? My wife said to me when she told me they're just about to award you an OAM for your services to charity and the media. I said, I thought it was a joke. I thought my mates were playing a joke on me. No, she said, it's true. You're going to be awarded an OAM. Oh, I said, wow, how great is that? Fantastic. You know what my wife said then?
What? I don't know.
Don't forget to put the garbage out tonight. So no matter how special it was, people keep it at a level, and you got to remember there's a lot of good people out there, even in this community, which is a wonderful community, Golgong, that do a lot of special things that a lot of people don't know about, and for a lot of those people, they don't want anybody to know about it. So if you get a medal, say thank you, I appreciate it, and move on. Don't think, wow, I'm better than everybody else just because you got a medal.
Thank you so much for your time. We've loved hearing your stories and having you a guest on our podcast.
You've been very, very kind to me, and can I say something to you before I leave?
Yep.
The best education you will ever have is here in Golgong, at the school you're at with good teachers and good parents at home. And next best education after that, the education of life. Get out, travel, see as much as you can of the world, and you'll learn another way of doing things. So for somebody like me who came from 72A English Street and go to 40 countries in my lifetime, that was another education. So always broaden your experiences. Well done. Congratulations to you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.